Council meeting for Monday, August 8th, 2017. I'd ask everyone in attendance to rise and join us in singing O Canada. Thank you to the National Film Board for the images of our country and to our very own Grand Prairie Boys Choir for the audio. This is our first council meeting back after a small recess of 2 weeks where we didn't have any formal council meetings. I know council members may have had some duties and activities they had to attend to anyhow, but it's our first official meeting back. Happy to be here, and you must have all heard that it was an exciting first time of the summer event and you all wanted to attend, so it's great to see that there's lots of people in the gallery today. We'll move on to the adoption of the previous council meeting minutes, those minutes from July 10th. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that Council approve the minutes of the City Council meeting held Monday, July 10th.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. Any discussion or debate on the set of minutes from the 10th? Any errors or omissions that we have to correct? I don't see anybody ringing in, so I will call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries, and we're going to have a motion for the adoption of the agenda. Council, there were a couple of items that came from committee today. There's a handout, I think, that went to every council member station. If I could just recommend that they be 9.4, 9.5, and 9.6 when we adopt the agenda. Somebody look to adopt the agenda with those changes? Councillor O'Toole.
Yes, I would like to add 9.4 to the agenda as 9.5.
Thanks, Councillor O'Toole. We're going to go 9.4, 9.5, 9.6. There's three different items.
I see that there now. I'm just double checking.
Yep. 9.4 is funding for the Bear Creek Folk Festival. 9.5 is funding for the Grand Prairie Stampede Association. And 9.6 is letter with respect to exploring an opportunity to host a future Francophone and Francophile Cities Network meeting. Thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you.
Any discussion or debate on the agenda as recommended? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote.
I've got a misvote here.
Okay, thanks, Councillor O'Toole. So we will cancel that one. I will clear the queue. We will re-vote on the agenda. Please vote. Thank you. That moves the agenda as amended. And this brings us to the delegation portion of our agenda. This is an opportunity that we have at every regular city council meeting for anybody to come and address council. We do allow people to register ahead of time so that we know if there's people that are coming. We have 2 people that did that, and so I'm going to call them first. And then we'll check and see if there's anybody else who'd like to address council. And this portion of the agenda is not for items related to the public hearing. So if you were here for item 6.1, land use bylaw amendment, you would do that during the, you would have your delegation during that public hearing. So the first of our delegations that let us know that they wish to present to council was Natalie Hebert. Is Natalie here? Natalie, if you'd like to come, we have your name, but for others who may follow you later on, if you would make your way to the presenter's table when called and just introduce yourself. And seeing that we do have a fairly big gallery, I'd like to ask everybody if they could do their best to limit their presentations to about 5 minutes. For 2 minutes. Well, you can do it. If you can do it in less, you're more than welcome. Welcome.
So this is concerning. Natalie.
Hi, Natalie. And I'll just make sure, if you can maybe pull one of those microphones so it's a little bit closer to you, so that people that are watching or on the recording, we can actually hear what you're saying. Welcome.
Hi. So I emailed you guys earlier a couple weeks ago regarding the urban chickens being introduced into Grand Prairie. I think we're looking at a pilot project of 10 individuals owning chickens, although I think that's quite large considering that we do have already individuals owning chickens in the city. But anyways, the concern that I bring to the table is that I actually don't want chickens in our city. I'm a paying resident, as many of us are, and some who also want to own chickens. But I think the largest thing that I would really like to bring to our attention is that it is going to become a problem for some of us who do live in Grand Prairie and do not want chickens. The reason why is, for myself and my neighbor, we cat trap about six cats each over the last 2 years, many of which I help kind of scoot out of my yard and into hers. I've paid for a sprinkler system to get rid of the cats in my yard. This is a problem for myself. I do enjoy walking around in my yard without having any animals. I have to deal with that. And then, excuse me, I'm really nervous. So I am concerned that if an individual does own chickens in my neighborhood, which I'm aware that some are considering that, I'm dealing with extra cats in my yard, which I already, with my neighbor, try to collect and call enforcement services, who have been wonderful and picked them up promptly and gotten rid of the cats and have fined the individuals those cats belong to. I also have to then pay for extra catching mice. I have already a mice problem. I live 2 blocks away from a farm field, so this is an ongoing. If we have chickens, they tend to attract mice, as well as more cats and predatory animals and nuisance pets. So this is becoming a problem for me. Another concern is the noise and smell. Those who have owned urban chickens in other cities says that this isn't that much of a problem. However, I have looked at the Edmonton Urban Pilot Project, and they've said that their neighbors, to the 19 that have owned, some of them have had that concern where it has attracted more cats, mice, and smells and noise. At the end of the day, roosters are not the only ones that crow. Chickens do too, from what I've researched. And it seems that even though we're a good chicken owner, they, at the end of the day, start clucking before 6 a.m. And with the weather that we've had in the past week, I have not been able to afford closing my windows. So this isn't going to be a problem for myself as well. Another thing I'm looking at that I'm concerned about, and I know that will be addressed, but I don't feel that as a taxpayer that this is something that I need to pay for. We have cats, mice, dogs already in the shelter. Well, not mice, sorry, but surrendered animals. And from what I've read, in the States, they've had urban chickens and many of the animals have landed in the shelter. So that's something that I don't know that we should look at, considering from what I've read, we have an abundance of animals already in our shelter. So that's something that I am concerned about. If it did give us a profit, then maybe I would be all for urban chickens in the city, but I imagine that the cost of surrendered animals is not going to provide that, or utilizing enforcement services to help manage the chickens in the community. But that is something that I am concerned about, and I don't really feel that I should have to pay for that. I'm going to have to pay for another sprinkler system to get rid of the cats, as well as paying towards these surrendered chickens. I have contacted the vets in Grand Prairie. At this time, we only have one vet that can provide the services to helping out the chickens. I mean, that will change, but we know the cost of keeping any pets costs a lot. So I'm not looking forward to that extra cost coming out of my taxes. Anyways, I think that's a few minutes. My apologies if I went longer.
It's okay. You might have went over your 2 minutes. I don't think you went over your 5. So
Okay.
probably okay. So for every speaker, we do have an opportunity if there are any questions from council. So I don't know if there are any questions for the delegation. Council, any questions? I don't see anybody ringing in. So it looks like you're off the hot seat. Thanks very much, Ms. Ebert, for coming tonight.
Thank you.
So our next presenter that registered ahead of time was Ms. Paulette Krill. Paulette, welcome. You've seen the drill once. I'm sure you're familiar with speaking in a chamber like this. Welcome.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this topic, and I am here to speak against Urban Hen's livestock exemption permits for the city of Grand Prairie. In third world countries, when people are taught how to improve their standard of living and prevent disease, one of the first things taught is to put a fence around the home to prevent animals and livestock from roaming near living quarters. Unfortunately, there has recently been a fashionable and romantic trend in building up in some North American cities. The trend is that having chickens kept in backyard chicken coops is somehow modern, cute, and cuddly. This is clearly not the case. Chicken coops are dirty, attract flies, and need to be faithfully cleaned to keep down the smell and to remove droppings. Farmers don't keep chickens close to the house, so we city dwellers must look to be lacking in common sense to want to do so. Chickens attract predators like foxes, coyotes, stray dogs, and feral cats who can carry rabies. This puts small pets, children, and adults in danger of being attacked, a very real danger to pets and humans. If improperly sealed, chicken feed attracts disease-transmitting vermin like rats and mice. Chickens are domesticated birds and can carry bird flu, which is a viral disease and can be transmitted to humans. As reported in the Daily Herald Tribune, chickens clucking reaches the decibel levels of a barking dog. In a city that already is too noisy with increased traffic, emergency vehicle sirens, and train horns blaring, extra noise needs to be avoided. Increased traffic, emergency vehicle sirens, and train horns are unavoidable. However, clucking backyard chickens are avoidable by not allowing chicken coops to be kept in backyards in the city. As is the case with all rules, the majority follow them, but some don't, and that causes major disruption. It opens the door to abuse of the bylaw, which opens a door to cause wider neighborhood concerns. It causes neighbors to report on neighbors, and then bylaw enforcement has to get involved, which means an increased workload and accompanying costs. It is a poor use of tax dollars for the benefit of a few, and the benefits are questionable. Chickens are meant to be free roaming, and to keep them in a coop is abuse. If the birds are allowed to roam around the backyard, then there is chicken poop everywhere, and the odors wafting through the neighborhood and creating a potential disease situation. Do you want to live next to that? Do you want your children or grandchildren living next to that? I don't. Freshly laid eggs plucked from beneath a warm, sitting, clucking hen for breakfast? A romantic notion indeed for some. However, the costs to the taxpayer are too high when all that is gained is freshly laid eggs for a few. This city has many providers of organic free-range eggs. When one supports the businesses that provide these eggs, then a benefit is had for all. Businesses thrive, people have jobs, and the city collects its taxes. And don't be fooled by the enchanting idea of free eggs. Build the coop, buy the feed, pay the vet, count the hours spent maintaining the coop and administering care, compensate the neighbor's child for feeding the hens and cleaning the coop, if he or she will do that, when you go away for the weekend, and then add it all up. The results? As one backyard farmer from Merced, California, told an online chicken forum, "Don't tell my wife, but I think my eggs are costing about $40 a dozen." There was a time in the history of Grand Prairie that livestock was permitted to be kept within the limits of the town and now city. That changed when people recognized that the detriment suffered by the majority far outweighed any benefit held by the minority of city dwellers. The primary reasons for that change were issues of sanitation, health, and safety. People who lived here before us tried the experiment, and wisely ruled against having livestock in the city. Let's respect this example. Urban chicken coops are not modern, cute, or cuddly. They are instead dirty and have disadvantages for urban dwellers, no matter how innovative the design. Urban chicken coops have been tried in this city and wisely rejected. In conclusion, chickens are livestock and belong on a farm in rural chicken coops. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Okay, thanks very much, Ms. Krill. You've seen it once, and so there's an opportunity here if any council members have any questions for a delegation. Any questions for the delegation? Okay, I don't see anybody ring in. Thanks very much for your presentation today, and make yourself available. And so that is my list of people who let us know ahead of time that they wish to present to council. There is an open opportunity. We'll make sure that everybody that wishes to speak gets an opportunity too. So is there anybody else that wishes to come forward? Sure. So we'll start over here, ma'am, if you'd like to come forward. I know that you presented to council before, and so you know the routine. And maybe if one, somebody, you'll get it? Okay. Somebody pull the microphone over for us. Thank you. Thanks very much. And so, ladies, if both of you could just introduce yourselves, as you've seen, for the recording secretary, and we also have a sign-in sheet there, and that'll just make it a little bit easier for us after the fact. Welcome.
My name is Kira Boucher. She's my caregiver. My name is Susan Schneider. Good evening, Mayor and Council, on this beautiful day. It's my birthday, so this should go well. Urban Hens made a very passionate plea to have backyard chickens by outlining how wonderful they were. But I grew up on a farm and have firsthand knowledge of the negative aspects they forgot to mention. Chickens smell bad, are noisy, dirty, and carry disease. From my childhood, I cannot forget the stench of ammonia from them. Chickens squabble all day long, and there's plenty of cackling. I feel that city residential lots are not large enough to contain the noise. In fact, our noise bylaw specifies noise needs to be away from the dwelling and sleeping facilities. However, urban hen guidelines only state a coop has to be 3 meters away from the house. Chickens sleep at night. However, in the summer, it's not dark very long, is it? I would hate to sleep at night, trying to sleep at night, with my windows opening, listening to chickens clack and cuckle like this. So enough of that. That is conversational volume. So Urban Hens stated chickens speak or talk at conversational levels. They do. That was recorded. My conversational level. If I was in my backyard, I wouldn't want to listen to that. If I was in my house with my windows open, I wouldn't want to listen to that. That's an actual recording, okay? Chickens may transmit salmonella, lice, and they create a lot of dust by scratching around. Chickens also attract wild animals, which was already stated. Chickens only lay hens for about 2 years. However, they can live about a decade. What will happen to them when they no longer produce? I am very concerned about having 100% consent from neighboring properties to ensure homeowners' rights are maintained. Some backyards may have up to 5 neighboring properties. Does that mean you can have chickens surrounding your home? I also feel very strongly that home property values would be lowered if there was a chicken coop next door. As was stated in the 70s, livestock was outlawed in Grand Prairie for health concerns. If we allow chickens, we're opening gates to all sorts of other farm animals, such as pigs and geese and goats to mow your grass. Despite Urban Hens' claims, many cities do allow backyard hens, but many cities do not. I feel the issue of backyard chickens is not about wanting fresh eggs or knowing where your food is coming from. You can buy fresh eggs year-round at the farmer's market. And like people like myself, can buy them from a local poultry farm. Like was stated, supporting local business. I feel this issue is more about protecting property rights from noise, smell, disease, and lowered property values from chickens over the fence. Backyard chicken coops will be just another thing for neighbors to feud over, and bylaw enforcement will be stretched even thinner. I know Bylaw and Committee has worked closely with Urban Hens to develop the livestock exemption permit process. But I would like Council to know that not all taxpayers know about this or even support this. In conclusion, chickens are livestock and do not belong in our city. I would ask City Council not to allow backyard chickens in Grand Prairie. Thank you for your time.
Thanks very much.
And listen to them chuckle away.
Well, we'll listen while I ask council members if they had any questions for the delegation. Council members, any questions? I don't see anybody in the queue. Thanks very much, Ms. Schneider.
Thank you.
For being here. Okay, was there anybody else? I know there's some other hands, sir. I'm just kind of going through the crowd. Come on up. You've seen the routine. I'll just ask if you wouldn't mind recording your name on the sheet there just so we can make sure that we get the spelling done properly. And if you'd just introduce yourself, and after you've got those two things done, yep, we've got the microphone in front of you there, and we're good. Thank you very much for coming. And we just, like I say, want to make sure that we get the spelling of everybody's names correct. And welcome.
Good evening. I'm Alan Rufiange. I live on 9922 106th Avenue in the VL area. A few years ago, the issue was brought up regarding excessive vehicles parking in residential area. So the fix was to limit parking during the day, and by giving a couple of parking permits to residents. Where my issue is, I live across the street from the law office, and they've been given 20 parking permits. So my area hasn't been fixed. It's worse, in fact, than what it was before. 5 days a week, I got vehicles parked in front of my place. If my parking is full and we have some friends that come to visit who are wheelchaired or crutches or whatever, they got to park down the street and try to walk to the house. Summertime, the street sweeper, if it does come down the street, can't finish the job because his vehicle's parked there. Same in the winter. The snow doesn't get properly cleaned because of the excess vehicles parked from the law office. So I know most days they have 11 of their employees parking in that area. And from what I understand, they've been given 20 permits. And I would like to know why. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much for raising the issue. Certainly the first that I've heard about it, or heard about it in this context. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Just a quick question, Alan. Do you find sometimes maybe your garbage you put out's not picked up because the vehicles are parked too close to it as well?
That's just 2 weeks ago. In fact, one of the bags was left because the truck never seen it, or because the vehicle was parked in front of it.
Thank you.
Okay. This isn't an item that was on our agenda. And so the most likely outcome tonight, Alan, is that towards the end of our agenda where we deal with delegation business, that would likely be either referred to administration for a report back to council or to one of our standing committees. But you've raised the issue for us. We'll have a look into it. And if you wouldn't mind, maybe Mr. Manuel over there, if you would just take the gentleman's contact information so we can follow up with you when we get more information. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. So is there? You've been waiting patiently. Thank you. Going down. You've seen the routine. If you wouldn't mind just making sure we have the right recording of your name on the sheet there, and
I'll write my name.
Introduce yourself.
All right.
And we'll do our best to try and keep it to about 5 minutes.
Okay, so ready?
Welcome.
Okay, I'm going to have to stand back because I talk loud. My name is Chantel Quinn, and I am 28 years old, single mom for 5 years. And I've also been born and raised around the oil field industry. My dad's Tom Quinn. And basically what I'm trying to get at is the homeless situation is huge. It's huge here. And I come from privileged, and I will be honest, I've been given everything. But the problem I had was I wasn't getting work. I applied everywhere. When I went, there's certain things I need to talk freely and openly about, which is the situation on the streets, downtown. People underprivileged, low income, and people who are pretty high up and well above. And I never got the help from anyone that could afford mortgages. I got help from people downtown. And my whole point is that I think that we need the art theater program. We need more jazz. We need more culture downtown. We need to have jazz and folk festivals to bring the community together, rock festivals. And I also was thinking about jobs, a job idea for me, because I've worked out on field, on location, having a canteen truck, kind of like a delivery service, but I actually make roast beef myself, and I make the sandwiches, but kind of like a in-town hotshot worker, going to all the guys, making sure that they have treats and snacks, so that they, you know, sometimes you can't get off work. Sometimes you got 20 minutes to finish this, and I'm hungry now. We got to think about the employees too, and I just thought of being like a boss mentality for people to actually think of their workers. 3 p.m., who's going on a coffee run? At least one person, I don't know, might be something to talk about for end of revenue each month. But I mean, just to have that little spark during the day, something. You know what I mean? Like, or I'm hungry, I don't have a lunch. I just started work, and I can't afford it. And to have companies actually pay, give tokens, cards, I don't know, do the work, but an idea to say, we might need Chantel, we need 14 sandwiches, we need some Gatorade, we need this, and we're out in the glass. Or maybe we're out by Hythe, and just do that. Or even maybe we're just working down by like the college or something. So something. But I thought, how can I do that? How can I get funding? How can a girl like me get that? And I thought, even if I had my daughter in the back seat, like, who wants sandwiches? Who wants sandwiches? Like, how cute is that? You know what I mean? And it's getting her to think about maybe saving money in the piggy bank. And I think about it every day. And I've applied everywhere. I could even show you in my email how many applications, and I never got work. And my parents, my family, couldn't understand how a lady with 3 years psychology, a year of social work, a mom who's been on the streets for 5 years can't get a job. And I'm like, I definitely can, and I can do it. But the problem is how do you start an idea? You know what I mean? Who do you talk to get this in promotion and get going? Because certain people would look at me and think different. And my point is I think even like back to work policies to get people to come back to work. Say they showed up intoxicated, took a truck. They're showing back up with work boots and need a job. Are you going to remember 5 years ago what they did, or are you going to hire them because they're honest? And I thought about docking pay for a month, but giving them room and board free and transportation and food. And that's where I would come in effect. Do you know what I mean? Like,
sure. So, Ms. Quinn, I just want to make sure, appreciate sort of looking at these innovative opportunities. So what was it that you were looking to bring to council's attention today, or what was the question that you had for us, or the issue that you wanted to raise?
Does anybody know if they are hiring for that, or ways I can go about doing that? Is it legal to do it that way? If I did that in my Jeep, drove around to certain, I don't know, sites and said, do you guys want a box of Gatorade?
So, you know, probably the best advice, and I know Councillor O'Toole would probably give the same advice, but you may want to check, there is an organization that helps with business development ideas like this and entrepreneurs. They're called Community Futures of Grand Prairie and Region. The city actually just helped expand their operations. They're located in 214 Place. The organization is called Community Futures, and they are there to help entrepreneurs develop their business ideas and put together business plans of how they can approach them.
Okay, because like I know it's too much, and I know it's like, what are you bringing? But at the same time, it's like, because homelessness is a huge issue here. Like, is there anything coming into where it's like maybe a youth center or something like that? No? Nothing? Because I've seen people just give up, and the suicide rate went way up, and health concerns went way up. and I've seen people drop. And it's tough out there. And if we're not doing anything, then everyone's going to give up. So my whole thing is this: if I show up with a canteen truck with some treats, might make somebody's day. But the point is why I'm here. I may be embarrassing myself, but the truth is, that's what a movement's going to be. And I've been here 28 years. I've seen guys be 19 years old with $1 million house. You know what I mean? And it be gone. And then they went to the streets because they didn't know how to work.
Sure. Well, so I really appreciate just looking. It's about 5 minutes now.
Okay.
Appreciate raising that. I think Community Futures would be the best place. The other thing that you may want to check out is the initiatives that the city has through our Housing First program to address and combat homelessness. You may know something about that, or there may be some additional details that would help answer some of your questions. I'll ask if there are any questions for the delegation. Councillor O'Toole.
Yeah, if you go to the 3rd floor in the tall building on 214 Place,
Yes, sir.
talk to Holly or Shane,
Okay.
make an appointment with them.
That's the Community Futures that I was.
Community Futures, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. I think you're hitting on something really good, and I want to commend you for your courage, because there's a lot of people in our city that won't come forward to talk to us. They're just nervous. And you're hitting on something in Edmonton when you say about when our economy takes off, there's people that do fall through the loops. So they have something on Jasper Ave. I can't remember the name of it. Where have you drank too much or something, you show up, and actually Shell and different companies are hiring them for the day of work. And I believe that thing could work here. So if you want to check that out on Jasper Ave, it's a private company, but there's opportunities. I think you're hitting something there, and I wish you luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McLean. Councillor Rice.
Council aware that
Councillor Rice, you're going to have to pull your microphone closer to you so that we can get you on the screen.
is that crime prevention is working with a group to put together a group exactly like that.
Day work program.
Day work program.
Thanks, Councillor Rice.
Where, and day work program, and where is that located?
It's not located anywhere yet. Councillor Rice
it's
brought up something that's in development right now.
Yes.
Oh, but how do you get in contact? Like if I just showed up?
I think what Councillor Rice has raised is something that doesn't actually exist yet,
Oh.
but the concept isn't new.
Is that a group
Okay,
of people
well,
have seen the need
good
and
idea.
are trying to do something.
Great idea. Great idea.
Thanks, Councillor Rice. Thanks very much, Ms. Quinn, for being here today. Appreciate you're here at the committee meeting as well earlier today.
Thank you so
Thanks
much,
for taking
guys.
some time
Thank
coming
you.
and join us. Was there anybody else that wished to present to council on any of the topics that either are on our agenda or maybe aren't on our agenda? I see another delegation there. I believe you both know the drill. You've at least seen it enough times and have experienced it before. If you just introduce yourselves, make sure there's a microphone pointed somewhere towards you, and welcome.
Thank you. And as most of you probably know, I'm Sarah Card. I'm the producer of the Bear Creek Folk Fest. Scorty Hackstead, he's the president of our board. I'm going to spare you all the long speeches. I've definitely addressed council a number of times. I just wanted to say, firstly, thank you. Our festival really appreciates the fact that council has taken to putting together this major events tourism fund, and has recognized the evolving needs of new things coming to the community, and we're very, very grateful that you've put this fund into place and given us the opportunity to apply for this. I also just, a very minor update about the festival. I mean, we're as it stands, as with last year, it's quite early at this point to be able to say exactly how many people are going to attend, because a lot is being processed in the box office right now. But as it stands, we're seeing very similar percentage numbers to what we did last year, which is roughly 50% of our sales we're seeing from outside of the Grand Prairie region. So it's very exciting to see that we're still drawing people from all over the place. Last year it was 140 different towns and cities from all over came, and we're very happy to see that people are excited to return to Grand Prairie. We are a not-for-profit society run by a fully volunteer board and roughly 500 volunteers. I also just wanted to, having attended the the meeting, the community living meeting this afternoon, I wanted to just quickly clarify on a couple things that might potentially be a point of confusion. Just to clarify our relationship with the Edmonton Folk Music Festival, they're a huge supporter of our event and give us a lot in terms of gift in kind and financial resources. They've given us money and support. We've never given them money or paid them for use of their stages or tents or anything. So everything that we do receive from them is fully donated, and they in fact gave us quite a large cash injection last year. And then what was the other thing I wanted to say?
No, that was it.
Okay. All right. So basically my, I guess I'm here if any of you have any other questions, and I'll close just by saying again, thank you again for putting this together. We really appreciate it a lot. And we would love to see all of you at the festival.
Which is?
August 18th through 20th. It's coming right up.
Okay, thanks very much, Ms. Card. Any questions for the delegation? Councillor Rice.
I know you work very closely with the Edmonton Folk Festival. I looked at your budget, your staff payroll costs, seem quite high.
Well, the payroll is actually, it consists of 2 people, myself, full year round. I work probably 70 hours a week, and after taxes make $2,600 a month, and it's not, we're definitely not lining our pockets. Let me just put it that way. It's not a living wage, and the hours that I put in don't really allow me to do a whole lot else many months. It really hits hard in September and goes all year. Then we have, for the same pay that I get, we have a volunteer coordinator who again works round the clock. It's seasonal. So I guess when you add up a full year of pay plus half a year of pay from 2 people working extremely hard, it looks like a large number, but when you break it down, I probably make about $4 or $5 an hour for what I do.
And I don't know if you're also looking at the additional staffing on the list. Most of those, like our production manager, site manager, sound and lighting techs, they literally work for the week of the fest, maybe, while our production manager works prior to that. But most of those aren't, as far as the society goes, they're not our staff. They are contractors that come in just for the event.
Okay, thanks very much. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Just a quick question to Sarah, or whoever wants to answer it. I know you get your staging from the City of Folk Festival, or the staging. And I've heard some pretty, I think last year was $100,000 you paid for that, to say you had best sounds. Or how much are you paying for your staging this year?
So the staging is fully donated. We don't pay anything. The main stage, the stage line, is fully donated, as are our stage cover tents. The daytime stages, I think we paid it was $600. It was well under $1,000 for the 3 stages combined. You might be thinking of our sound production. That's not the Edmonton Folk Fest. That's a company called All Star. Because, like I said, Edmonton, we've never given them a dime, the Edmonton Folk Fest. All Star production, they give us a major discount. So their price should be $100,000. They gave us 50% off of that last year. So they actually cut, and they're doing the same for us this year. They cut $50,000 down as a sponsorship. When we first set to putting together this event, I actually did approach a local company back in 2014. There's nobody in town who has the resources to be able to meet the needs of this festival for what is demanded in order for us to be able to bring in the artists that we're bringing in. So, with every service that we bring in, we definitely, go out of our way to support local first. and then any services that cannot be provided at the level that we require, then we do have to outsource. But we're getting incredible deals and a lot of stuff either donated or seriously discounted.
Okay, well, thank you. I just know that we have a local like do 2 or 3 stages, and it's had bands of Lone Star and Big Nazareth and done lots of stuff. So I kind of wonder about the folk festival and that they can't do it, but that's okay.
It's the scope. It's the scope. We have 4 stages, and it's also the size of the event. It takes a lot to kick the sound up that big hill. I mean, it's a lot more than you know. You'd have to go into the nitty gritty, but it's more than one might think.
Thanks, Councillor McLean. Just can you speak to the, with respect to site costs, can you speak to how much you have to pay for versus how much you get donated? Like, what's the breakdown? Are you paying for more, or how much support is there for gift in kind?
We've actually had an incredible amount of gift in kind, and certainly since I submitted that budget to council for this grant, we've had an evolution. We've been in the gift in kind has gone up. We've had a number of companies who don't usually ever, like trucking companies or scaffolding companies that don't typically give gift in kind and are giving us their services at no cost at all. So we've seen, I think it's close to $300,000 in gift in kind on top of all the cash donations as well. It's very substantial. I think we got about 70, close to 80 sponsors giving either cash or gift in kind, and some at very large levels in terms of what they're contributing.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the delegation? Don't see anybody in the queue. Thanks very much for being here. Thank you. Okay, now the last time I asked, there weren't a whole bunch of hands that shot up. Is there anybody else that wished to make a presentation to council? This will be the last opportunity to do this unless it's something that was related to the public hearing that I mentioned before, the land use bylaw amendment. Is there anybody else that wished to make a presentation to council? Last opportunity. Then we'll close the delegation portion of our agenda. We'll move on. The first item of business is item 6.1, and this is that land use bylaw amendment. Item 6.1, I will call to order the public hearing for land use bylaw amendment C 126075, and I will look to administration for an introduction. Ms. Downing.
The purpose of this public hearing is to add cannabis definitions to the land use bylaw. On April 18th, the Community Growth Committee directed administration to report back on the status of the retail sale of marijuana. On June 13th, administration presented a report to committee on the status of the legalization of cannabis for recreational use, including retail sales. Committee directed administration to undertake a strategic approach to cannabis regulation for the City of Grand Prairie. This approach included monitoring the proposed federal and provincial legislation, providing input at the decision-making levels provincially, researching other jurisdictions, both in Canada and the U.S., that have existing regulations and experiencing in legalization cannabis, consulting with internal departments and external stakeholders to ensure all impacts of the community are understood and addressed, and finally, drafting interim amendments to the land use bylaw to add definitions to the cannabis-related uses. And the purpose of this public hearing is to complete that step. On April 13th, the federal government announced the Cannabis Act. The federal government has set broad legislation and then delegates the authority to the provinces for distribution, sales, and to impose further restrictions. The provinces will need to enact their own legislation. The province of Alberta conducted stakeholder engagement throughout the month of July. In the fall, they will introduce the Alberta Cannabis Framework. It is anticipated that the province will delegate some authority to municipalities to regulate the location of cannabis retailers, manufacturers and growers, and write and enforce other bylaws related to cannabis use. And the City of Grand Prairie, as I mentioned, is following the strategic approach. The 4 proposed definitions are cannabis, retail store cannabis, cannabis production and distribution, and cannabis lounge. The proposed definitions are general and capture all the potential activities related to the production, sale, and use of cannabis. The intention of the proposed amendments is to ensure that the land use bylaw is ready for the proposed legalization. It makes it clear that there are a defined set of uses for cannabis-related activities, and they are not included in other definitions in the land use bylaw. It also allows us to be clear that the existing businesses can't simply transition into selling cannabis once it's legalized. For example, without the proposed amendment, selling cannabis could be classified under an existing retail store general or retail store convenient use definition. These types of uses are permitted in all the city's commercial land use districts. The proposed amendments will not be added to any of the zones or include specific regulations, and administration will not be accepting applications for cannabis-related retail stores or cannabis lounges until the legalization occurs. Once the municipality's role is known, administration will introduce further amendments to assign the uses to land use districts, to establish specific development regulations, and to create a business licensing framework to occur when the federal and government defines what the municipality's role is. Administration recommends that Council give Bylaw C-1260-75 3 readings. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ms. Downing. Any questions for administration at this time before I open up the presentation submission portion? Any questions for administration at this time, Council? Okay. Seeing none, then I will open the presentation submission portion of this public hearing. This is an opportunity for anybody who wishes to speak to the subject matter of this public hearing to come forward. Is there anybody that wishes to speak to this public hearing? Is there anybody that wishes to come forward to speak to the contents of this bylaw amendment? If you'd like to come forward, Ms. Quinn. It's the same spot for every presentation. We'll again ask you to limit your comments and welcome. And I'm going to ask, no, sorry, you in a council meeting, you address your comments to council, and then if there's any questions arising, then I get to direct them to whoever in administration.
Okay, for sure. Okay, well, I'm just like an actual advocate for it because 4 years ago, roughly 3 years ago, I was finishing my psychology and I actually went blind, got Bell's palsy, shingles, back to back being a single mom. Out of nowhere, I woke up and had no face, none. No doctor, no nothing, didn't want to give me anything for pain pills for at the same time. And I'm an advocate for it because I use marijuana to re-heal my face. I could feel electric magnetic impulses inside my face reconstruct, and I'm talking my eye was down here.
So just to be clear, that council isn't debating whether or not we do legalization of marijuana or cannabis products. That's not our role. That's the federal government and provincial governments that are doing that.
I know, but isn't there a place coming here? Because I heard something about that it might be coming here. And it's a huge need for a lot of people who are sick with cancer or people who are not doing good. I know a lot of sick people.
Yeah, so what council is working on today is amendments to the land use bylaw so that when the federal government changes the rules, that we'll be in a position to regulate how that happens in Grand Prairie. So should there be a retail location that comes forward, we would have a way to manage that in our land use bylaw.
Yes, okay. No, I was just being really straight up and honest because I know a lot of people who look down on it and it needs to be passed. Something even here needs to be passed. And it's just like 8 prednisone a day and oxys and stuff are not a good route. And this movement would be way better here. Good. So that's all my words.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Mr. Quinn. Okay, is there anybody else that wish to make a presentation related to this land use bylaw text amendment? Is there anybody else that wishes to come forward? Seeing nobody else coming forward, council, one last opportunity for questions of administration before I close the presentation submission portion. This is your last opportunity. Councillor Rice.
When you're looking, Allison, at those, I know odor has been a problem in the production in a legalized growing place. You know, in a municipality, the stench was horrendous. So I assume as we put our position together, we're going to take that into consideration.
Ms. Downing.
Thank you, Mayor Given. certainly that's something that we will bring to the table and have council have a look at, is requiring ventilation systems and looking into how other municipalities are looking at how to deal with the ventilation and the smell.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ms. Dowling. Any other questions for administration? Councillor Radburn.
Mayor Given, thank you. Just to confirm, Allison, as I look at the conclusion of your report, it said further amendments to assign uses to land use districts to establish specific development regulations and to create a business licensing framework will occur when the federal and provincial governments define the municipality's role in cannabis regulation. So this is just a first step. Much has to be done, and there will be further engagement with the community with respect to those future regulations or changes. Is that correct?
Ms. Dowling?
Thank you, Mayor Given. Yes, this is an interim step to add the definitions, and we have until July of 2018 to bring forward regulations. So that will involve public engagement and engagement with council to come up with appropriate regulations and a business model.
Thank you.
I don't see any other questions, Council. So I'm going to close the presentation submission, or close the public hearing. We'll move on to business arising. If I can get a motion for first reading, Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that council give first reading to bylaw C 1260-75, being a bylaw to amend the land use bylaw.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. So we have no discussion or debate on first reading. I'll call for the vote on first reading of bylaw C 1260-75. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I move that council give second reading to bylaw C 1260-75.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Any discussion or debate on the proposed intern amendments? Any discussion or debate? Again, I see nobody in the queue. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move council have third reading for bylaw C 1260-75, being a bylaw to amend the land use bylaw at this meeting.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. So for any bylaw change to be passed, it requires 3 readings. And in order to have all 3 readings of that bylaw change approved in a single meeting, we have to have this motion, a motion to allow us to have a motion later on. In order for this motion to pass, it must pass unanimously by the council members that are here in attendance. Is there any discussion or debate as to the merits of having third and final reading tonight? I don't see anybody in the queue, so I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Radburn.
And finally, Mayor Given, thank you. I would move council give third reading to bylaw C 1260-75.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Any discussion or debate on that third and final reading? If not, I'll just thank administration. This is a proactive step. I understand the City of Edmonton has taken a bit of a similar approach to ensure that the municipal tools that we have are being prepared and ready for the coming change. And I look forward to working with the community and administration on adapting to the change as the federal government and provincial governments make their decisions. If there's no other comments, questions, I will call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries, and that handles all of our business for that public hearing. We'll take us out of public hearing section of our agenda into unfinished business. We had no items under that section, no items under reports, so we'll go straight into community business, starting with item 9.1, the Community Growth Committee meeting from July 11th. I think that would have been Councillor Clayton's meeting, but she's not here this evening, so can I ask another council member to bring forward that set of minutes? Can another council member bring forward the set of minutes from July 11th Community Growth Committee meeting? Councillor Rice.
I move that council receive the minutes of the Community Growth Committee of July 11th.
Thanks very much, Councillor Rice. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Is there anything that we need to correct before we formally adopt them? Okay, I don't see anybody in the queue. I will call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries, and we'll move on to Councillor Rice. Anything that you want to highlight from that set of minutes?
Just would point out the committee had a discussion regarding FOIP. You know, where FOIP has become a huge part of our life, and so there were questions at the committee answered by Ms. Williams that about the disclosure of personal information and the requirements of FOIP. So that was probably the biggest part of the committee meeting. There were several others that were more development issues.
Thanks very much, Councillor Rice. Thanks for that overview. We'll move on to 9.2, the Community Living Committee meeting from July 11th. Community Living, is that Councillor Tarrant?
Thank you, Mayor Kim. I will move the minutes of the July 11th Community Living Committee meeting.
Thanks very much, Councillor Tarrant. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Any errors or omissions we need to correct? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Tarrant, anything you wanted to highlight?
We have a short meeting, a couple great delegations there, but nothing to report.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Tarrant. And that'll take us to 9.3, the Community Safety Committee meeting from July 18th. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I would move that Council receive the minutes of the Community Safety Committee meeting held Tuesday, July 18th, 2017 as presented.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes before we adopt them? Again, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. We did have a few items coming out of that meeting. One that is subject to debate here tonight, I believe, but maybe they all are. The first being a tender for 96th Street Lane improvements. I would move that Council reallocate $485,000 from the annual slope repair program to 96th Street Lane Improvement Project, and further move that Council award tender T-48-552-17 to Wapiti Gravel Suppliers in the amount of $330,729.33, exclusive of GST, as the lowest qualified bidder, meeting city specifications.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Go ahead.
Just a brief overview of the project. City administration and our public works crew have been working hard to try to mitigate 96th Street from failing due to rain and other weather conditions that have weakened it. It's now become an immediate issue, and this transfer of the slope repair program, which is just a sideways transfer, we're not stealing from any department to give to it, is just meant to do this work that wasn't actually in scope when we did our budget process. But this is now they're going to put us over budget, and it's going to remediate the road so that any further weather events won't damage it to the point where homeowners and other city infrastructure would be damaged to it.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. Any discussion or debate on the motion? Again, seeing nobody ringing in, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. The next one is another tender. This is in regards to 102nd Street geometric upgrades and traffic signals at 105th Street and 116th Avenue. I think we're going to take this one motion at a time because there's quite a few transfers and reallocations.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. I was just conferring with the Legislative Services Manager, and I think that's what we'll do. We have to have a formal council motion to amend the capital budget with each of these transfers. So we'll do an individual motion on each of them, even though they're under one agenda item. Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you very much, Mayor Given, for that. So saying that, I would move that Council reallocate $80,000 from the 92nd Street Twinning Project to the 102nd Street Geometric Upgrades Project.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. I guess rather than speaking to the content of each individual product motion of the reallocations, if council members do have questions about the individual project, that's fine. But all of these are in order to facilitate the final motion, which is related to the 102nd Street geometric upgrades.
For sure, and I will speak to that once we get through all these allocations.
Any discussion or debate on the reallocation of $80,000 from the 92nd Street Twinning Project, which has been completed? Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that Council reallocate $100,000 from the 2015 Road Rehabilitation Project to the 102nd Street Geometric Upgrades Project.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. Any discussion or debate on this reallocation? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Thiessen.
Thanks again, Mayor Given. I would move that council reallocate $90,000 from the annual permanent line marking program to the 102nd Street Geometric Upgrades Project.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. Any discussion or debate on this motion? Councillor Rice.
So how much line painting does that cut down, eh? You know, I believe line painting is really integral to safety.
Thanks, Councillor Rice. So maybe the question for Director Galante, whether these are unexpended funds for a previous year or whether they're limiting in the current year program. Director Galante?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The program would remain properly funded for the work plan. We have a schedule for 2017 and 18 to the end of the four-year budget cycle. We are managing the different locations, and this is the permanent thermoplastic line marking program. So this intersection is a critical location on the bypass and 102nd, so it's a highest priority. So we can use different type of painting in a second and third priority location. So that is the justification to relocate funding from this particular program. Thank you.
So fair to say administration has prioritized and said that the geometric upgrades and are more important at this intersection than $90,000 of line additional. Okay. Sorry, anything further to that satisfied? Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions, discussion, or debate? Seeing none, then we'll call for the vote on the reallocation of the $90,000 in the annual permanent line marking program. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Thiessen.
All right, so it's a little loud there. I would move that council award tender T-52-552-17 to Rico Construction Limited in the amount of $966,053.45, excluding GST, as the lowest bidder, meeting city specifications. And speaking to this is again geometric upgrades and light installations up and along 102nd Street and 117th Avenue, as well as 105th Street and 116th Avenue. The reallocation of all the funding that we just undertook will go to cover the complete cost for the geometric upgrades that were determined to be necessary with the right in, right out portion of 102nd and 117th Ave, as well as cover the engineering, management, and supervision of the project and the installation of the lights.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. I always find it helpful to confirm locations by landmarks, and so maybe this is for, it can be either for you or for Director Galante. Maybe Director Galante, can you confirm the locations and the nature of the geometric upgrades on 102nd Street, what essentially is happening, and then maybe if you can sort of reference the 105th Street lights for people just so they have a better sense of exactly where that's happening. Oh, and look at that, you've probably even got a map.
I have a map.
Yes. I have a map too. I just can't show.
So the location is covering 116th Street, 116th Ave, 117th Ave, and 102nd Street. There will be a right in, right out movement with a median island at that intersection on 117th Ave and 102nd Street. Also, the asphalt will be resurfaced, so you will see a new layer of asphalt on the whole intersection. Further studies indicated that there is a need to inject some capital funding right now in order to extend the life of the asset instead of digging up the intersection again in a few years. And of course, the installation of a traffic signal fully controlled on 105th Street and the bypass road, to allow for pedestrian crossing. There's a lot of pedestrian movement in that intersection, plus vehicles trying to turn left into the bypass road. Just a comment, the traffic light installation will occur first, and then the geometric upgrades.
Director Galante, was there a strategy on why the traffic light installation will happen first and then the geometric upgrades?
Mr. Mayor, the idea is to allow proper access to the businesses along the corridor. So the work will be proceeding first on that intersection because there will be some delays, some cuts on the area, on the asphalt to install the poles and the cabinets, all the electrical wiring and some underground utility relocation. So there will be some work, some interruptions. So we didn't want to open both locations at the same time. And that is the main reason to go first with traffic lights, complete that portion, and then move to the Mr. Mike's intersection.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, Dr. Galante. Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Questions, comments, discussion, debate? Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Just a quick question. Horacio, Director Horacio, does the province still own this road? I know we're getting it back, so they're all in compliance. Are they helping to pay a little bit for it? Or just like I'm talking about the lights. Have we applied for any? Because I know whenever the county has 1 or 2 lights, they're out there, give us half or buy them all on the main highways. And we haven't gotten these highways back yet. We're going to get them when the new highway opens or whatever, 43X. But so is the province going to contribute any money here?
Director Galante.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is an agreement being in the works right now between the city and Alberta Transportation to receive funding over the next 4 years, when and the city will take over jurisdiction on the bypass road in about 2 years, as soon as Highway 43X is completed. So as part of the funding envelope, then council will be able to use funding that will be currently spent on traffic signals or any sort of capital upgrades to the road. Nothing is specifically allocated as part of the funding envelope from Alberta Transportation for this particular project. Thank you.
Councillor McLean.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. Well, so what you're saying is the money they're going to allocate to us to give us these 13 kilometers rolled back, which we know we had a major default by Costco, we're going to be using that same funds. Or are we going to get these roads back in fair condition? That's kind of where I'm reaching. It's extra, I guess, but you're basically saying the money they say they're going to allocate us, we'll have to start eating into that. And we got a regional hospital. It's going to increase the traffic, and we're going to have to be paying a lot of money here. So you're saying we're going to be eating into the money that they're promised us. They're not going to do any extras, or are they going to give us the road back at least in half shape?
Dr. Galante.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As part of the agreement, Alberta Transportation is funding a full condition assessment of the corridor, the 13 kilometers, even incorporating drilling and analyzing the bearing capacity of the granular base of the road. So we're going deep into the structure of the road. We don't have information right now. So the results of the condition assessment will be presented to committee by early November. That's the deadline that we work out with Alberta Transportation. After having the condition assessment in place, we will be able to develop a capital plan. It will be a long-term capital plan, probably for 10 years. But today we don't have results to really assess the condition or the capital upgrades needed in the long run.
Thanks, Director Galante. Councilor McLean, I think you're on the right track there. Absolutely. As council is aware, the negotiation and advocacy that we did to get Highway 43X built was sort of a blessing and a curse at the same time. Taking back the current bypass will be a cost to the city of Grand Prairie. Thankfully, we were able to negotiate up from the province's first offer, and the province has agreed, as you know, I know that you know, to provide $20 million. I would hazard a guess that the condition assessment will say that road will need more than $20 million of work over the next 10 years. But getting the condition assessment will give us at least a little bit more ammunition if we need to build a case to go to the province. Any other discussion or debate on this motion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Thiessen.
There we go. Now I'm live again. Okay, so this is basically in regards to most of our first half of our delegations tonight, but this is the Bylaw C-1226C, the amendment to Animals and Responsible Pet Ownership Bylaw to have livestock exemption permits. I'm going to do a little thing that's different, though. I'm going to move forward with the first to third reading, but the final motion I'd like to hand off to Councillor Rice to read it, as I would like to propose an amendment to that final portion. All right,
so in order, so if you'll just give first reading, then we can get that one on the books.
Definitely.
And then we can get into the details.
All right, so I would move that council give first reading to Bylaw C-1226C, being an amendment to the Animals and Responsible Pet Ownership Bylaw.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. And so as with the previous bylaw amendment, we have no discussion or debate on first reading. We'll do all that once we get into second reading. Please vote on first reading, Council. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I would move council give second reading to Bylaw C-1226C.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. So I'll open up discussion debate on second reading of the amendments to the Responsible Pet Ownership Bylaw. Open for discussion debate. I don't see anybody in the queue. I will recognize Councillor Radburn. Councillor Radburn.
Let's get it rolling. Thank you, Mayor Given. Let's take a few minutes here. First of all, I want to share my respect for those who advocated for this and for staff working with that group to bring something tangible, concrete for council to look at and ultimately debate tonight. However, I will not be supporting this bylaw. And here I'm going to group some of my reasons or my reasoning that people may or may not agree with. First of all, I think the move to a livestock bylaw is problematic for me. It is the beginning of a slippery slope. This is not just about hens, but it's going to be many other types of livestock as we go along. I think that administration has underestimated the impact of the staffing capacity that will be required to be the livestock police, so to speak. All the way from the director of safety being a decision maker to appeals to committee and to staff to monitor what's happening. Number two, property rights. I do agree with the perspective that noise, smell, disease, pests, property values are a part of what's on the mind of our residents, and they may be minimized, they may not be, but for me, they are, as a total package, problematic. Number three, I also believe this has the potential of straining relationships in neighborhoods. I think there'll be a NIMBY effect here at some point, and I think that the confidentiality could be a problem. Who's going to say no, and what's going to be the product of that saying no? And how many no's are going to be needed before the director of safety decides on signing off or not? Number four, rural-urban lifestyles are somewhat blurred now, and I think that's a good thing in some respects. But in this respect, I do think that urban and livestock, to me, are a problem. I think generally residents expect that livestock is rural. And finally, I do feel that the support generally from the interactions I have with our residents, and there's been tens of residents who have spoken to me about this, I think there's underwhelming support, shall we say, for this bylaw. The people who have interacted with me are certainly on the no, or no, this isn't the time for this in Grand Prairie, the time. And finally, and maybe most importantly for me, one of my tests is to look at what I would do. And I would not want urban hens in my neighborhood next to my house. And that's where my mind is, that's where my heart is, and so that's, I guess, my final reason as to why I can't support this bylaw. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Councillor Tarrant.
Thank you, Mayor Given. You know, on this issue, I think I've bounced back and forth. There's been a lot of really good debate, and a lot of people have contacted, you know, us on both sides of the issue. I will preface it saying, you know, I grew up on an acreage. You know, we had 100 plus chickens. My mom still has 100 plus chickens, and so I have shoveled out quite a few chicken coops in my life, and so I have a very keen sense of what chickens are like and their behavior and you know what they do. You know, throughout these discussions, one of the arguments that really resonated with me was I was challenged to look at you know, the city as if, say, the city didn't allow any animals, and we're a blank slate, and somebody came to us and said, we want to have dogs in the city, and so council's debating that, and I'm sure some of the issues that would come up, well, dogs are smelly, they poop everywhere, they carry diseases, they're noisy, they bark all the time, there's the cost of enforcement, enforcing animals, and you know, when they get out and dealing with that, they dig up yards, they affect property values. When you have dogs yipping and yapping all over the place, they need exercise, and most people don't give exercise. Some dogs attack people, and for all these reasons, we should not have dogs. And so likewise, you know, we've heard a lot of the same arguments with chickens, is that you can't, you know, you have the smell, the disease, the noise, and you know for me, what it really comes down to is that, you know, you're going to have some dog owners that are terrible dog owners, and I'm sure we've all had neighbors that had dogs that run wild, that boop, that bark incessantly. And it's frustrating, and you know, we have certain bylaws in place to deal with those negative behaviors. In the same respect, I think that chicken owners could have the same type of thing. You could have chicken owners that have, you know, they exceed the number of limit of hens, and they have, you know, they're not cleaning up their coops on a regular basis, and you know, all those negative things that we associate with dogs. But I think there are some good hen owners, and I've actually had the opportunity to visit a couple of them within the city, and you would have absolutely no idea that the chickens even exist. You know, the chicken coops are immaculate, they're cleaned out on a regular basis. You can't hear the chickens at all. You know, the light hum during you know, during the day, and they're almost, you know, silent at night. And so for me, I you know, felt that if I had to have the same, if we allowed dogs, I just felt that we have to, you know, I just couldn't see the rationale in not allowing chickens. I just think there's, you know, so many similarities, and yes, you're going to have abuses, and yes, there can be negative neighborhood impacts, but that's why you have rules, and you have bylaw that enforces rules, just like we do with dogs and cats and pigeons and the other things we've exempted. And so, you know, for that reason, I'm supportive of the bylaw. I think that with the proper controls, that we can, you know, allow them, and that they can be, you know, just like dogs, they can be an asset to some people, and people have them as pets. People have them for the eggs, and I think that it could be a net positive. You know, with that in mind, there needs to be those proper regulations in place, and I think administration's done a good job of establishing what those regulations are, and then holding people account to them.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Tarrant. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I flip-flopped as well as myself, but I'll be going in the other direction, I believe, than Councillor Tarrant. One question I asked, what do you do when they're done laying the eggs? Because I can tell you in the rural farm, I'm not going to do. They're going to cut their head off, put them in the pot, and cook them that night. Oh, you have to bring it to the vet, and you'd have to do this, and you'd have to do that. And I'm like, come on, like, where's the reality here? And one thing that really distinguished it for me for how I'm going to vote is we have some real small lots in our city, and I mean really small lots, 30 foot wide. Bang, 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 bang. You can't even park. If you park your 2 vehicles down, try to walk down in the snow in the wintertime. So in the writing it says, well, we'll have to look at the lot size and everything. So they're already picking and choosing individuals. And we have a good section that's rural in our city already. So we already have chickens in our city from the annexation, and they're here, and they're being done right. So I didn't like the picking and choosing in the neighborhoods as well, and that's the reason why I'll be voting.
Okay, thanks, Councillor McLean. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. Unlike some of my council colleagues, I have not flip-flopped. I've been pretty consistent with Councillor Radburn, and honestly, I respect both sides of the argument. I respect that people don't want chickens, and I respect that people do want chickens. I agree with Councillor Terrence that there are going to be responsible pet owners and irresponsible pet owners, but hence that's why we have this bylaw. I don't think it's going to be an overwhelming amount of coops or complaints that we're going to get unless they're not legislated. I recently, at my old house, had an incident with a neighbor whose dog likes to jump over the fence and is quite barky and very nippy. And it didn't bother me that the dog jumped over the fence and pulled the hat off of my head with its teeth, but it sure bothered me 3 hours later when he jumped over the fence and scratched side of my son's head with his teeth. Now, all I did was have a reasonable conversation with my neighbor and ask them that if their dogs were going to jump over the fence, if they could just add another higher version or maybe a sheet of plywood to the fence so that would not happen to me or in the future, our future owners of our house, that they wouldn't have that kind of stuff. We dealt with it very civilly. And nobody got hurt, luckily. We got a scratch on the head and a hat pulled into a yard. I don't see chickens being that much of a nuisance either. I grew up in and around farms. Most farms that I grew up in and around, my grandparents' farm, we were talking 20 to 30 chickens in every barn, and then the stench of the chicken poo really ran rampant. But we're talking about 4 chickens here. We're also talking about an opportunity to open dialogue with your neighbors, whether or not whether or not you like what they have to say. It's still an opportunity to get to meet your neighbors, get to know how your neighbors feel, and grow your community within your community. Now, if they don't want you to have it, well, then that's something that you have to suck up and say, well, my neighbor doesn't like it, but am I going to let this affect my relationship with somebody in my community for a long time? As far as I know, this is the 3rd time this council term that chickens have come up. We said no, we said maybe, you go do it yourself, and then the community went out and did it themselves, and they brought it in here, and they brought about 70 to 80 people to fill up this room to say, yes, we want chickens. And I think the hard work and the effort of those people, I don't know if it necessarily should be rewarded, but what it should be given is at least an opportunity to see if this is going to go all wrong. I have total faith in our administration that they looked over what was presented by the community as something that they could work with and be manageable with. And I do not see chickens, especially 10, as suggested. My amendment, if this passes, might not make a few people happy, but the way I look at it is 10 residents, whether or not you have a chicken coop now or not, that's just going to legalize it, and then we can monitor and keep people in check so that they're not breaking the law. Otherwise, we've got to hunt them out because now it's going to be a secret society of chicken owners. So for me, we make it legal. It's 10 right now, so that's 1 coop per 6,900 residents. And 10 is about less than half of the number of neighborhoods that we actually have in the same area. And I have total in our whole community, I think we're at 22, 23 neighborhoods that we have. So we're not even going to be hitting half of our neighborhoods with these chickens as it is right now. And I have total faith in our administration that they're not going to lay 5 hen houses all in a row surrounding 1 property. I think they're going to use their due diligence, and they're going to keep it out of the small lots, and they're going to make it so that these chickens have a right to live and survive, and the owners have a right to have a new pet if they so choose. So for all those reasons, I'm voting yes today.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. I see Councillor Terrence in the queue, but I'll just take an opportunity sort of in the middle of the debate here and then towards the end. I want to acknowledge exactly what Councillor Thiessen did with respect to community involvement. There hasn't been a community organization that I can think of off the top of my head, and I stand to be corrected, but where council has said, no, but go and write a bylaw and we'll consider it. That's the first time that that's ever happened, and I really want to acknowledge that. I appreciate that there were people that were passionate enough to do that kind of homework. Certainly not something that we see every day. I will be supporting the amendment. My support is contingent upon taking an approach that allows us to assess the results. So this is a permitting approach. I don't by any means think that we should approve this and allow carte blanche to every resident who may think that they, for 10 minutes that this is a good idea. I think we need to have a measured approach to this. And so the issuing a maximum number of 10 in the first year is very, very important to me. That allows us to assess the reality of the situation versus the perception. Right now, a lot of the challenge in this is we don't know what a legalized framework for urban hens looks like in Grand Prairie. We have some perceptions that there are some out in the community. Not all of us have had a chance to experience that. We have some perceptions about the negative impacts, but we haven't had a chance to actually assess that. And so I think it's really important that we take a mitigating approach that ensures that the community can know that in the first year there'll be a maximum number, that there'll be a report that council of the day will get a chance to review, assess how that's gone, and consider whether or not it continues to be appropriate. I think that that's a really key point for me. At that stage, council will be able to say, look, has this worked out? Has it been a net positive? Has it been a net negative? And if it turns out that it's been a net negative, then council can act accordingly. I want to, in my view, a community is not a thing that's a static entity. Communities change over time. We've seen many neighborhoods in Grand Prairie have older areas. In older areas have very large lots. And the intent of those large lots was because everybody had a gigantic vegetable garden. Many of these large lots now are simply grass and trees and water fountains. But in many, many areas, people are again starting to do gardening. And so there's I don't know if it's cyclical, but certainly there is an evolution in communities. Communities don't stay static. The rules don't stay the same forever. We get a chance to try new things. And when we do try new things, we need to do it in a way that we can ensure that we take all appropriate precautions so that we don't cause unintended consequences. And we need to take approaches that allow us to assess the results and then assess whether it's something we want to continue with or not. And so it's on the basis of the limiting and the reassessment of the program, as we'll follow this bylaw amendment reading, that I would support this. Councillor Tarrant.
Again, just want to respond to a couple comments, and again, getting back to my earlier thoughts that the difference is between dogs and chickens. If you support dogs, then why not chickens? Councillor McLean had mentioned that. Well, what do you do with them at the end of life? And you can have the same argument for dogs, and we don't have a bunch of sickly dogs that are just let loose, roaming neighborhoods. People take the appropriate care to handle when you reach the end of life, and same with the argument with the small lots and lot sizes. You can make the same. We've all seen the German Shepherds that are cooped up in little 10-foot by 10-foot yards, and maybe that's something that we need to address as well. But there needs to be some regulation there. But it's the same thing, and so I really get back to if we're allowing dogs and cats, I don't see a big difference in any argument you could apply to one, you could apply to the other.
Thanks, Councillor Tarrant. Councillor Rice.
I just feel that I have to bring this up. It's been mentioned several times about the work the group put into in drafting this bylaw. And I respect that and I appreciate the amount of work they did. But let's not underestimate the work that our staff department, Mr. Manuel's department, put in. They did not do that by themselves. I think our staff is to be commended for the time and patience that they showed in doing research and making sure this bylaw was drafted the way we need it to be drafted. So, while I appreciate the group's input, the bylaw was drafted by our staff.
Sure. What we see in front of us today, administration wasn't working on this until council had stopped work on this issue and said, no, we're not interested. And the community group said, oh, that's too bad. And council said, well, if you want, bring something to us. And that I think that's the work that I was referencing. Certainly administration's done lots of work because the information that was presented from the community organization, community groups, isn't what's here today. Administration made sure that it works within our context, and you're 100% right. Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. At the end of the conversation, I'll just start right at the end. I won't be supporting this. This is one of those controversial issues that has brought a lot of attention to me from residents of Grand Prairie, whether it's emails or phone calls or just meeting in a store. there's not a lot of people that showed support with me in the support of having chickens in their backyard. Comments such as, if they want livestock, then move to the farm. If they want to have 10 vehicles, then they should go out of town where they can park their vehicles in acreages or on farms. But the reality is we're living in a community here where we have to all live together. And I'm not in favor of this. Whatever happens, it happens. But I really think that chickens belong on a farm, not in a home in town next to somebody that's really not that excited about it. For all the reasons that were brought up by Councillor McLean and Councillor Radburn, I support those as well. And also, I do appreciate the people that have gone forward and worked very hard. Some of those are my friends, and it's really tough to make this decision on my side. But the reality is way too many people have come up to me and said, don't vote for the chickens. So that's where I'm at. I'm voting because I'm getting information from the residents. I've had some people come up to me and said, we want chickens, but definitely outnumbered. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Toole. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I'll try to be pretty brief. I think I think all of council has received numerous calls and emails and texts and talked with friends on both sides of the issue. What I found is that for my friends and the people who I've talked to, when I asked them if they actually looked into the urban hen keeping requirements or what somebody has to do in order to have chickens in their yard, I think most of public's perception is a bit uneducated in this regard, because they think you just go down to the chicken store, you buy your chickens, boom, get them a tag, and you're good to go. But that's not the case. In fact, the Urban Hens Group and our own administration, like, they crafted together something that could, in it very by its own guidelines, might be a deterrent for a rash run on chickens here in the city. We're talking about site requirements. We're talking limiting hens, nuisance conditions, the standard of care, the size of the coop, proper maintenance, training and mentoring, taking an actual chicken course so you know how to best take care of your kitchen or your chickens, inspections, registration with the province like any other farm would have to do with your chickens. And you're not allowed to sell your eggs and your meat, and you can't butcher it in your backyard. You have to take it to a licensed butcher or to a farm somewhere. So there's a whole bunch of deterring factors that are actually set up in this application process that if somebody were to miss it, well, then they'd lose out on their opportunity to have chickens. So I think with all the due diligence and the care for the community that the community and our administration showed, I think this isn't going to run out of control. We're not going to have a chicken in every backyard. And I think at least what I've found is when I've explained all of the conditions that someone has to meet in order to get chickens in their backyard, most of the people who are vehemently no change their mind. They're like, oh, well, okay. I guess that's all right. That's going to stop it from happening in every backyard. So my hope is that this will go through so that our community and our administration's work is not wasted on this or my breath. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak to second reading? Anybody else wish to speak to second reading? Okay, seeing none, then we will move on to vote on second reading of the amendment to Bylaw C 1266C. Please vote. Okay, thank you. We have an even number of council members tonight. We'll see how that works out. And it turns out that it didn't matter. There are 5 opposed, 3 in favor, and so that motion does not carry. And I'll just look to our Legislative Services Manager. Do we need a motion to rescind, or that just completes all the business with respect to this item? Okay, thank you very much. And so that completes all the business related to that bylaw amendment. Councillor McLean?
Thank you, Mayor. Just one question, since how this is voted. If there's some individuals that have chicken in our city, there would be a penalty or fine not to have them, I would expect, because if there's someone having it, they're breaking the law.
Councillor McLean. I guess I don't know to, actually, a similar question was asked at committee. I think the answer was that, like many parts of our responsible pet owner bylaw, it is enforced on a complaint basis. And so in Councillor Thiessen highlighted a situation with a dog. He was an owner or a resident who chose not to make a complaint to bylaw. And so in that example with the dog, that owner did not face any repercussions. The neighbors sorted it out themselves. And I think that would apply in this situation as well. So on a complaint basis, if somebody has a concern, they can call our bylaw and the bylaw would be enforced. Okay. Councillor Rice?
Would be prepared to move we rescind first reading of bylaw C-1226C.
I see our legislative services manager telling us that we don't need to rescind first reading, so it didn't proceed past second reading, and so we don't need.
Okay.
Just dies there, and so we'll move on to item 9.3.4. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. This is in regards to the sale of our Community Social Development Building, otherwise known as the Old Fire Hall, which is where our Community Social Development offices are. I would move that Council direct administration to make lots 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21, Block 2, Plan 1410 AC, marketable, and to sell the properties using a request for proposal process to pre-qualify proponents to enter into negotiations with the city for the ultimate purchase of the property. Now, at committee, we received a report from administration saying that there's an opportunity to make the fire hall, I guess, available for sale. The discussion around the committee table at the time was around how we're going to house our different departments. First off, community social development, search and rescue units, and among others. And so in the interim, we have a plan if we end up selling the building here. But the other part of the discussion at committee was around ensuring that we get the fairest value for this piece of property, and not just a sale off of an asset that would put the city and its residents in for more tax burdens by finding homes for these other places. We'd be looking for the best possible deal, which is hence why we're doing the RFP process.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. Just one clarification. Technically, should the asset be should council decide to go ahead with a sale, or should the sale work, the asset would actually move from non-taxable to taxable. And so in any case, the taxpayer will start to receive some revenue, but just a slight distinction and aside.
Thank you for that addition, Bill. It's very important too.
Councillor McLean?
Thank you, Mary. Just one quick question on this. If we did sell that the lots or put it up for RFP, we know we have an interim measure, say, but where would that money be reallocated? And because we do know that in a few years, the staffing that is there will need a building, and they were hoping to restructure that building and remodel it. So it might cost us more in the end, or will it benefit that monies go towards the new building we might need? Has that been thought out by administration? Because would the money just go in a general pot, or would it actually be allocated to where we might need?
So the city's money does go into a general pot, and then it's up to the council of the day to make their determination. Council should council choose to move forward with the sale, council will have flexibility to determine what happens with those funds. And if council wanted to set it in a reserve for future needs for community social development, that would absolutely be possible.
Sorry, Bill, to add to your comments as well. Currently, right now, the city owns the old public school building. So if a sale were imminent and we had to move our offices out there, the community social development team on the interim would move over to the public school offices. Technical search and rescue would have to find a place of their own, and we also have some RCMP members as well, but we have discussed with the RCMP, and so they're aware that if this building sells, that they would have to move somewhere else. The other part of it is that we do have some rent monies that we didn't utilize in the past year for community social development because we stayed in the old fire hall. That could also go alongside the price of a building to potentially house or rehouse or renovate a place for our community social development team.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Any other discussion or debate? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Thiessen, was there anything else to highlight from that set of minutes?
My mic cut out on me. I don't know if that was synchronistic or what, but I do just want to highlight one more thing. We did receive correspondence from a Peace Wapiti Public School Division on cannabis legislation, and they're singing in tune with many members on council that when cannabis does become legal, the request was that council make it so that we develop appropriate legislation to ensure that any cannabis retail stores or outlets are not located within 300 meters of any school, which I thought was very due and diligent. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor Rice.
I assume we pass that letter on to Ms. Downey as she's working on that legislation so that forms part of.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Councillor Rice. Okay, so we'll move on to our additional agenda items, starting with 9.4. These came from the Community Living Committee today, and so I guess I'll look to Councillor Tarrant to introduce them. 9.4 with respect to the major tourism events funding for the Bear Creek Folk Festival. Councillor Tarrant.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that council approve funding in the amount of $100,000 to the Bear Creek Folk Festival with the return of the $14,000 grant received this year from the Arts Development Festival funding.
Thanks very much, Councillor Tarrant. Open for discussion and debate on the motion. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'm going to try something and I'll speak to it afterwards. I'd like to do an amendment on this proposal for instead of $100,000, $75,000 to the Folk Festival. I believe because at the committee today it was brought up that there might be a third party looking for funds as well that's been in our community for years. And this is an event that's 2 years into play, not like 40 years Stampede, or I believe it was brought out the East Coast is coming in play. And we had some lapse time to have this on our website and everything like that for individuals to look at. So I think it would be fair to leave some extra money in there for other asks. And they should maybe work on it to sell more tickets to make it more profitable. I think they've had their first year, they got a lot of money, 80,000. They're reaching for 100 this time. So my amendment's for 75,000.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor McLean. Of course, that amendment is in order. And so we'll have discussion and debate on Councillor McLean's amendment to the motion. Open for discussion and debate on Councillor McLean's amendment to see the figure be $75,000. Councillor Rice, do you want to discuss the amendment?
I do. Okay. And I really appreciate your rationale, your reasons, and certainly I'm pleased that there is already money left in the fund for that third applicant. I thought and pondered long and hard on this application. It appears to me that an event the size of this one, in today's economy particularly, you're looking at 3 years to really get your feet under you. And so I think they made some mistakes last year. As you know, at the committee meeting after that, I spoke to those. I believe they've made a lot of changes to correct those mistakes. I believe they've grown and matured as an organization. And I guess I'm willing to help them grow for the first 3 years. And then if I don't think they're mature enough, then I'll jump on them. Of course, I won't be here, but that's irrelevant. But so I'm sorry. While I respect what you want to do, I can't support your amendment.
Thanks, Councillor Rice. Councillor Tarrant.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I will be unable to support the amendment as well. When this funding was originally derived, there were two organizations that we felt met the criteria, and that was the number was looked at, with these two organizations in mind. Not saying that there could be others that do apply and that may potentially meet the threshold, although that's we had some pretty stringent qualifications in the grant proposal, and so I have a hard time seeing if there's going to be anyone else that would actually meet the significant requirements within the funding. But for those reasons, I will be unable to support this amendment, and I think that we need to give full support to the Folk Festival and to see what it can really do. We've seen the enormous success in the first year, and I think it's contingent upon council to reward that success and to continue supporting them.
Thanks, Councillor Tarrant. Councillor Rice is asking a question of clarification. Councillor Rice.
Now, does the funding for the Summer Games, the Alberta Summer Games come out of this fund, or is that different?
No, Council has chosen to budget a couple of years ago before this fund existed. Council chose to budget dedicated funds for the Alberta Summer Games.
Thank you.
I see Councillor Tools in the queue. I'll just speak to the motion. I won't be supporting the motion. My main reason and to leave aside the value of the festival funding or the strategy of major tourism event funding, as council, we have, I think our duty is to judge the issues that are before us and the applications received rather than applications that may yet to be received. Based on the information that administration presented today, 2 applications that were received in full that covered all the required information and met the program criteria that was developed. That's what I'm basing my decision on. I would be happy, as a matter of fact, I'll be very happy if there are additional events that meet the program criteria. That would mean that we have a great suite of events that are bringing people into Grand Prairie, and that's excellent. And I would be happy to support that. But today we have 2 applications that were in front of us. This policy, council started discussion in this. I mean, in the committee report today, it was moved by Councillor Clayton back in September of 2016 that council referred the development of a policy for major tourism events and festivals to the appropriate standing committee. So it was back in September of last year where we started the discussion of this. And so, and that continued, as council knows, here at the council table and back to the committee table a number of times this spring. And so I think that everyone had equal opportunity to be aware of the program, and I'm happy to judge any other applications that come forward. And I hope that we'll see more because, again, that means that we have a robust festival circuit in Grand Prairie that is bringing money into our local economy. That's exactly what this fund is intended for. But today we have the 2 applications that were in front of us, and so I intend to vote on the, so I won't support the motion to amend the recommended amount based on another application that may come down the road. Councillor O'Toole?
Yeah, I was just wondering, how did this day get picked as the closing date for the applications to be here? Like, I just want to know how 2 made it and the 3rd put his name in, whoever it was, and missed out. I just wondered, was there a deadline, or did we just decide we got 2? Let's hand it out. I just kind of curious.
Sure. The 3rd, whoever it was. Director Miyagi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is no deadline that was set. We were just noting to committee that there is another application that came in. It just didn't quite meet the processing time, so it has to go to the next community living session. But it was more for committee's awareness. So now the assumption that it's closed is shouldn't be the case, but the funding that's available may academically dictate how many more we can process after that.
So does this application that's in the hold pattern, is he 1 level up from the next person, or does the other guy could bump him as well? I think it's fair to say that the program is structured on a first come, first serve. When council set up the policy, there was no application deadline that was imposed. It was intended to be a limited pot of money, and the applications that were received first would be dealt with first. So if there's one that's out there that has submitted everything that administration needs, then it is further ahead of one that hasn't yet been submitted to administration. Thank you very much for the clarification.
Councillor Rice?
Refresh my memory. Was it council's intent that we replenish this fund annually?
I think that was the intent, Councillor Rice. Yeah. Although that's obviously subject to the next council.
But I guess one of the things is you can't wait much longer to award this money. You're running slow on festival season already. So, yeah, it would make no sense to delay decisions much longer.
Thanks, Councillor Rice. Any other discussion or debate on the amendment, on Councillor McLean's amendment? I don't see anybody else in the queue, so I'll call for the vote on Councillor McLean's amendment to see the amount reflected at $75,000. Please vote. A vote in support would reduce that amount from $100,000 to $75,000. Okay, thank you. That motion does not carry, so we're back to the original motion as... Sorry, do you want to call for a... Sorry, do we need to call for a re-vote? Okay, so call for a re-vote on the amendment. Please vote. A vote no would keep the funding at $100,000. I will cancel that vote. Okay. Councillor McLean made a motion to reduce the amount from 100,000 to 75,000. If you vote yes, that means you agree with reducing the amount from 100,000 to 75,000. If you disagree and you wish to see the amount, I know I'm being a bit pedantic, but but after 2 tries, I feel like I have to explain it. Okay? Okay? Okay. Please vote. Everybody pushed their buttons with extra authority. I saw that. Just make sure it's stuck. Okay. Okay, that motion does not carry. Okay, so we're back to the original motion as moved by Councillor Tarrant. Any discussion or debate on Councillor Tarrant's original motion? Councillor Radburn.
Obviously showing my hand, but I just want a quick comment that I agree with Councillor Rice. For me, I think all 3 will potentially be fit for the funding we've developed. But for me, the fledgling, the beginning, it does require some more support. So I don't treat them equally. I think the more established we should support, but I do think that we should support the more fledgling festival with a little more money. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Radburn. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. I don't disagree to helping out new funds or new festivals, but also look at people that started festivals and actually made it work and lost $50,000, $60,000, $75,000 and didn't come asking for money the next day. And those are the true entrepreneurs in a lot of ways. And yes, I can see this folk festival developing, but when you have your hands out the first day and you double your budget and it's still up at $900,000, I'm going to be questioning it. And a lot of other people in our community are. And I look at true entrepreneurs where they don't come asking right away. And when they're survived for a long time, then say, hey, you're giving it to others, why not give me some?
Thanks, Councillor McLean. Councillor Rice.
I guess what the thing is, Kevin, is I guess we're to be congratulated for listening. You know, for those people who started and did, as you said, yes, they're to be admired. But council looked at those and they listened, and so we put a program in place. And I don't think you can blame people for using our programs. That wouldn't make any sense. But I mean, we set this program up because we saw the struggles of those people that went ahead and did it. So I just don't think we can blame them for using our programs.
Thanks, Councillor Rice. I'll just interject to say that I support the motion. I'll also be tip my hand on the next one as well. But really, for both and any applications that come forward, if they can meet the program criteria that council set out, we were very specific in our intent. We wanted to foster and support the growth of events that bring people into Grand Prairie so that they spend more money here. The 2 events that we have today, the Folk Festival and the Stampede, both have a demonstrated ability to do that. They are bringing people that would otherwise not come to Grand Prairie. That's the policy issue for me. Anybody that can meet that bar and the criteria that we set out, then I would be happy to support them. The program is set up on a first come, first serve. That may be something that council wants to consider, whether there's an application deadline in future, but that's not the case this year. And so with this program, I'm excited to see council doing almost exactly as Councillor Rice said, sort of assessing the lay of the land out there, saying there are people who are doing this who want to do it, and it's to our community's benefit if we can have more of these events happening. And so let's get behind them and support them and support the growth of them. And so I'm happy to see these 2 finally coming forward. Is there any other discussion or debate? Seeing no one in the queue, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries, and I think that handles our business from 9.4. Councillor Tarrant.
Mayor Gibbon, I will move that council approve funding in the amount of $50,000 to the Grand Prairie Stampede Association.
Thanks very much, Councillor Tarrant. Councillor Rice.
Support this motion, but let us remember we just voted no livestock in town, so we need to not expand this to cattle drives through the middle.
I don't know. I
thought you were, yeah.
Now, Councillor Rice, if you're going to open up an opening like that, a cattle drive I could stand, but a chicken on a leash, I don't know. No, if we're going to treat chickens like dogs, as Councillor Tarrant said. Thanks very much, Councillor Rice. Certainly support this one as well. The Stompede has a long history of, demonstrated history of bringing people into the community, and happy to be able to support it in their 40th year. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, long before I moved here, I believe David Biltek, former councillor, helped started the Stompede, and I definitely support it, but with a little bit of hesitation. We've seen numbers today with the county and the monies, with 20,000 people they bring in linear assessment and monies, and MD with 4,500 bring 100 million in, and our taxpayers, when you go pay your bill on the residential house, it's not even comparison to people right on our borders. So I am for it, but I think with hesitation that in the future, because what we heard back in the committee was, oh, the county gives gift in kind. This is in the county. So we're giving $50,000 cash. So hopefully next year we'll see where the county might be popping up, because I do believe it's good with the Stompede, 40 years, and I think it's a positive way. But as we know, with the county, 20,000 people have a lot more money to play with. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McLean. Councillor Rice.
Is it still our intent that we would consider giving the bikes as well? I know they have to give back any other money they got from us, but what about the bikes? Go take some little kid's bike back?
It's your job, the last thing you do.
Councillor Rice, I think that'll be a consideration for the 2018 event. This is for the 2017 event, and so we have some time to figure that out, and council will have to figure out how we handle ongoing sort of traditional sponsorships like that along with this fund. But good one to raise. Councillor O'Toole?
I'm fully supportive of this $50,000 to the Stompede. I was at the very first one with my wife a long time ago, and it was in Grand Prairie to begin with, and they just outgrew Grand Prairie, and Grand Prairie outgrew the Stompede, and they found another location that suits them better. So we still definitely benefit from the Stompede. So. Oh dear.
Thanks, Councillor O'Toole. Is there anybody else to speak to this item? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Tarrant, you had one last one.
One last one that came out of committee today. I will move that council direct the mayor to write a letter expressing interest in exploring an opportunity to host a future Francophone and Francophile Cities Network meeting here in Grand Prairie. In speaking to this is something that was brought by Councillor McLean to the meeting. This is a network that we've signed on to a couple years ago now, and there's an opportunity to possibly host an event here, which would bring between 60 and 120 municipal leaders from across North America to our fair city, and so the intent of the motion is just to have to express the interest. We're not committing ourselves to anything, but saying that it's something that we're interested in.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Tarrant. Any other discussion or debate on the motion? Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Maria. I'm glad it's brought forward. I think our city is where we're at now. We're the right size to host certain functions at a certain size. And I believe this one could bring mayors from cities of 600,000 to 1 million to our neighborhood that would have never been here before through culture, economics, and tourism. And I also believe that with this, we could get lieutenant governors, 1 or 2 coming from the states, House representatives from states, and as well as probably maybe a governor or 2. I think if this is done right, it could look really, really well next year. And if it goes forward, I think a lot of promise. In my 2 terms, I've never seen a group come together like that. We had a symposium, and then she was here once, and a leader, but that was in Alberta. I haven't seen a flavor across the province or country come to our city like that, and I think this could bring it.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLean. Any other discussion? Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. So we would expect that the group would respond to this letter, sharing with us some of the requirements of hosting, and then we can figure out the cost to host.
Sure. Exactly, Councillor Ebron. And there was also another motion that didn't come to council at the committee meeting today, direction to administration to make an administrative inquiry around the technical requirements. So this is sort of the expression of interest at the political level, similar to when the provincial government asks if we're interested in hosting games. There's sort of a motion of council saying, yes, we're interested, and then there's the technical details behind what's required to host it, which administration is going to look into.
Thank you.
Any other discussion or debate? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. And that handles all of our committee business, even the additional committee business. And that would take us on through to correspondence. In your package, council, you'll see a letter from the County of Grand Prairie with respect to intermunicipal collaboration frameworks. And the county has instructed their administration to contact city administration to determine potential dates for both councils to meet to discuss a comprehensive approach to ICFs. Certainly it's a pleasure to see the county take this step. The City of Grand Prairie is happy to be working with a number of our regional partners and doing some ICF pre-work. In the letter, the county specifically recognizes that they are very interested in further discussions with City Council on a regional transit service, and they note that they've postponed development of a county system as they're now of the belief that a more effective system is a regional system in partnership with the city. And so this is here for council information. I believe the administrative the contact will be made at the administrative level, but certainly this level of communication in the county worthwhile to be here for council's information. So look for a motion to receive for information. Councillor Thiessen?
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would so move.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. Any discussion or debate on the motion? Seeing none, please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. And that will take us to our delegation business. Now, we had a number of delegations, the first three of which were with respect to the Urban Hens bylaw. And I think that those items, those delegations, issues or presentations have been addressed with our vote on that bylaw. The others, we had a few, though, with respect to parking around in the VLA, and with Ms. Quinn with respect to some entrepreneurial ideas. Councillor Rice?
Ms. Quinn's presentation we received for information.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Rice. Any discussion or debate on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. And then we also... Oh, do you want to... Councillor Logan, would you like a revote? Okay. 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 We'll ask our recording secretary to ensure your recorder is in favor of receiving for information. Thank you. And then we'll move on. The other was with respect to parking in the VLA area. Councillor McLean?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to refer to the appropriate committee, Alan, that was here about parking in front of his home. The over-parking issue, so whichever the committee goes to.
Sure, so refer to the appropriate standing committee, the issue of the parking permits provided to the private business in the VLA area. Councillor Rice?
There's also an apartment building in that area, so that may contribute to it.
May, yeah. So we'll refer the issue, and administration will have an opportunity to provide us a report. Okay, so we have that motion. Thanks, Councillor McLean. Any other discussion or debate on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. We have no notices of motion today. So we'll go to council member reports. I think we only had one report from an external agency, board, or commission. Maybe two additional ones. So we'll start with Councillor Rice, though, and Grand Prairie Airport Commission. Councillor Rice.
Last Saturday, a small local aircraft slid off the end of the runway and crashed. There were no injuries. There was no damage to airport property, and no scheduled flights were affected. The second runway remained open, and everything was cleaned up as quickly as possible.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Councillor Rice, for the update. Councillor Radburn, you had some reports from external committees.
I have two, Mayor Gibbon, thank you very much. July 20th, Disabled Transportation Society board meeting. We received an update on our acting manager status. Our manager is taken ill, is on sick leave, so we have an acting manager in place. We have initiated an OH&S committee with membership from drivers, manager, and board members actually too. We addressed our computer fax machine needs. We implemented an oath of office and confidentiality for board members. And we participated in the KMSC charity golf tournament. And we made final payment to the city for the last $20,000 that was a required portion from DTS to buses that were purchased by the city. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Radburn. Your other report?
Yep, thank you. The next one is July 19th, Nighthawk board meeting. Doug Marshall Golf Tournament was very successful, netted about $75,000. So together with CIP grant, we'll be able to expand the Shelley and or make Shelley and deck improvements. Mountain biking programs have been popular this summer. 8 camps, summer camps, and we're attracting, I guess, riders from Fort St. John area as well. Bear Paw Golf Tournament is going well. We have 40 hours of volunteer commitment from the Sunrise Rotary Club that is helping with operations of the facility in our partnership with him. And the RV park is revenues are up from last year. It was so it's a bounce back year. We're not where we were 2 years ago, but we're on the right track. Thank you, Mayor Gibbon.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Councillor Rice.
Just want to advise, since you were away, the last chamber mixer was presented by Nighthawk. Excellent, one of the best mixers, and I think in the most informative presentations that I've seen at one of those.
Thanks very much, Councillor Rice. Councillor Radburn, I think that was all of our external reports, and so we'll start Councilmember Roundtable with you.
Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. Just very quickly, I did want to share with the council that I did attend the Alberta Council on Aging's picnic in the park. I thought maybe that was a role that somebody felt I should be able to meet. Fortunately, Councillor Thiessen was with me, so our average age was below senior status. And I was pleased to bring greetings at that event. Thanks, Chris, for joining me. The other thing I just want to share with you is that kudos to all our staff for Heritage Day activities. Have 2 grandchildren from Edmonton down for the week, and so we went to the Heritage Days events at the Grand Prairie Museum and had a great time with all the different games and activities there. So those are the 2 that I'll highlight tonight. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much, Mayor Gibbon. I attended a number of things during our period of rest, and one of them was the Philip J. Currie Dinosaur Museum board meeting, and I just got a few announcements to make. We had our vote of who was going to take over the seats, and the chair of the board this term will be Linda Seid, and the vice chair will be Peter Meyerhofer. I will retain my seat as the secretary, and the treasurer is Loretta Levers. There's some other delegations there, but we won't get into that right now. I did want to share that we are selling tickets at different locations. Councillor Radburn was the first one that I was able to sell to, and just maybe he said that maybe the rest of the councils would maybe go with it as well. So here's my sales pitch. They're 3 for $50, or you can get 1 for $20. It's a Can-Am, and it's a side-by-side Maverick. Tickets are selling actually pretty good.
It's like a motorcycle?
No, it's a side-by-side. Like me and you could be sitting beside each other in a car. It goes fast.
Oh, for God's sakes.
Anyhow, the draw will be held on September 30th, and at that particular date, we will be having a kind of a social dine and dance, a little bit not as upscale as we've had in previous years. just to make it more affordable for those that want to attend that haven't been able to in the past. Also, I did attend the GPR Regional Tours Association. We also had a fairly extensive meeting there, and the goal at this meeting is to try and get the people from the tourism board to understand that there's so many things going on in the small towns in northern Alberta, small villages that are really exciting and bring a lot of people to these small towns, and yet the funding stays in the southern part of the province, and it's just sort of not fair. And it includes the city of Grand Prairie. They pay a tourism tax at the hotels, and we get like 2% of all of the money that's raised through the tourism. So we've tried very hard. We've got a new person that represents the northern part of the province now in the tourism industry for Alberta, and we're just trying to get the word out and maybe meet with the minister. It just seems like it's falling on deaf ears. So that's what our discussion was mainly about. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. And Councillor O'Toole, I appreciate you supporting the Dinosaur Museum, but if you use this time at council to show up hawking cookie dough, we'll say that your opportunity to use it to promote fundraisers is over. As long as you're not selling cookie dough at the council table. Councillor Rice.
Okay, I attended the Street Performers Festival, the East Coast Garden Party. I attended a Grand Spirit meeting where Steve Madden was confirmed as the new Chief Executive Officer. I attended a meeting at the Community Foundation. We brainstormed ways to improve and enhance Random Acts of Kindness Day in Grand Prairie. What I want to remind council this evening, and thank you, Councillor Radburn, for mentioning Heritage Days. Tomorrow there will be a tea at Forbes House from 1 to 2:30. And part of the tea is a tribute to Mrs. Forbes. They were among Grand Prairie's first pioneers and instrumental in their early development. They traveled here. It took them 70 days on the Athabasca Trail through cold heat, insects, and even a forest fire. And because she was such a good packer, Mrs. Forbes' good china survived every bit of it. And it was an honor and a privilege to have been invited to the Forbes house to have afternoon tea on that fine china. So tomorrow you will have that opportunity once again from 1 to 2:30 at the Forbes house. I want to just add my special congratulations to our own director, Mr. Galante, who completed the Grand Cash Death Race solo in 23 hours. So I would offer that congratulations and refrain from saying why. So
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Councillor Rice. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. Just a side note from that Council on Aging picnic that I attended with Councillor Radburn. If you were to put us side by side and ask us who is a member of the Council on Aging, is it him or is it I? Well, we found out that day that I am the member of the Council on Aging, and thank you, Councillor Radburn, for all the props that you gave, giving greetings to the city for that. It was just a small thing to support the community, but turned into a lot bigger than it should have been, but thank you for that. On July 16th, I did what I said I would do way back in April. I said I'd go to the streets of Sexsmith. I said I'd stand on the side of the road, and I said I would cheer on Carter Rowney bringing the Stanley Cup for the first time ever to the Grand Prairie region. So me being one of the greater fans, I also handed off about 3 of my jerseys so that people didn't look like posers on the side of the road. They actually looked like fans, and we got to see the Stanley Cup live and in person. And no, Bill, I was not jealous of you sitting in that car because I was exactly where I wanted to be. I just hope that you told Mayor Claude Legacy that I was the one that predicted it right from the start and the get-go. So it was my honor to be there. On a side note, sometimes we make some funding decisions that get railroaded throughout the community, and we have to face some of those Facebook trolls and stuff. But I think Carter Rowney winning the Stanley Cup did a lot, not just for our community, but also for the Grand Prairie Storm. for the council spending $80,000 to bail out an organization like the Storm when they most needed it. Sports heroes right now are those real life heroes for our kids in the world, and they help to inspire us to our own greater ends to live out our dreams. And to have one of our own Grand Prairie Storm members and one of our own Peace Region members bring home everybody's dream, which is the real Stanley Cup when you're playing street hockey on the streets. In Game 7, it was truly a dream come true, not just for me, but I'm sure it's making more dreams happen for the 5,000 or 6,000 people, 20,000 I heard, but I was at the end of the parades, not at the beginning, but it was really cool. So thanks for doing your community service, Mr. Rowney, and I was privileged to be there. Finally, 2 days later, on July 18th, I happened to go down to Muskosipi Park to take in the skate park expansion, I guess, consultation with the public. And it's really what I thought I'd see there was a whole bunch of skateboard and snowboard owning people there, adults, you know, because we're designing this for kids. So I was hoping it wouldn't be too professional. Well, lo and behold, I was blown away. We had well over 50 people, I think, in attendance, and about 80% of them were kids under the age of 16 years old. In fact, one of them was Quentin Clayton, Jackie Clayton's own son, who was trying to get his friends to come in and say, we're going to design the skate park, and they wouldn't come in. And in fact, I went out and I said, hey, listen, if you come in, you can brag to all your friends that you designed the skate park once it gets built. And then one of the kids said, well, what if I want to tag the skate park? I said, well, we are totally in support of public art displays in the city of Grand Prairie. If you come in and work on this, I will come over to your house. I will drink your dad's beer. I'll drink your mom's wine. I'll sit down at the table and I'll help you design the most coolest tag ever to put on our skate park. And then you can say, this truly is mine. And so she came in and brought her brother and her brother's friend, and we had a good old time. But really cool to see how many kids were really engaged. And I think our administration should be commended for that, for putting that together, as well as the consultants who really had to tailor their presentation to the crowd that was in hand, and nobody left. So that was really, really cool. I had other things, but those were the two coolest things. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. And Councillor McLean. Gotcha.
There we go, wrong one. Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. I attended in Quebec City, the Frankfurt and Frankfield Cities Network. I think we spoke a lot of it. I'm very proud and honored of that. I felt like I was at home. I was treated very, very well there. And I believe the one message I want to send is we're going to be looking for a lot of workers in the near future, nurses, doctors, engineers, and there's a lot of them that need to know this information across our country, that we need you and you're welcome, and we have a big base here of history. So I was really honored to represent the city there. I did miss the East Coast Garden Party because I was there, but okay, there's always next year. And I think it's something to be very proud of what we did here tonight. I want to thank all my councillors and the mayor. I think that in 2018, I hope to be on council, but if I'm not, it's something I'm going to be very, very proud with. And my final one was I was in the town of Grand Cache, and there was a few people in the paper named first and third on the podium for the solo race. And then there was a Mrs. Martinez, and her boy is Alex Martinez, and he's going to be a world champion someday in UFC. Mark my words, he's going to go far. She completed it. She has a lot of, she battled cancer in her life. It's a well-known thing in our community, and she's incredible. But my wife went up to see her in the morning, and we were watching on the thing, Death Race. You can watch where they're at. It's kind of good, and it's kind of not, but it's close. So she seen her come in, and then I said, she come back. I said, I got to go see Horatio come in. And that's the second time I seen him do it, and the third solo he's done there. And he's done a marathon. But other people in our city has too, and we have a lot of individuals that really try their best and do good in other communities and bring up the bar. So I want to say thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McLean. Councillor Logan.
I think this July was probably one of the best that I can remember in a long time. So I celebrated it by staying away from City Hall. Many family reunion that was just wonderful to reconnect, and it's nice to get going again at this point.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Councillor Logan. I'll just report on a couple of things where I represented the city that weren't sort of formal council meetings. On Tuesday the 11th, I presented to the Electoral Boundaries Commission as they were in Grand Prairie. I presented the city's formal position. was received very warmly by the Commission. They appreciated that we actually had a map showing what we meant. Not all of the presentations had that, but I believe that the Commission was looking for input just like ours. It was also interesting that there were people from Grimshaw who have been moved into the Peace River constituency. They said that they'd prefer to stay as part of Dunvegan Central Peace, so that may also help the Commission move those West County communities into one that's more closely aligned with the City of Grand Prairie. But I represent the city's position there. On Friday the 13th of July, the city manager and I traveled to Calgary to meet with representatives of ATCO to talk about some energy opportunities coming in our community. And we also took the opportunity while we were there to meet with some of the vice presidents at Seven Generations Energy in their headquarters. Back in Grand Prairie on Monday the 17th, I had an opportunity to attend a event around cultural learnings and training with students that are participating in cultural learning exercise over the course of the summer. I also had an opportunity to attend and represent council at the retirement party for Seven Generations past, I guess, CEO, Pat Carlson. I was invited, I was actually the only person that wasn't a part of the company that was invited to speak. I thanked Pat for his vision on developing what he likes to call Grand Prairie's energy company. Seven Generations Energy has obviously had a huge impact on the local economy, and it was my pleasure to bring council's thanks to Pat. Not everybody necessarily knows, but you know, Pat has had a successful career in the energy industry with multiple companies. But in Seven Generations, his intent of making it truly a Grand Prairie company, there's no clearer indication of that than the fact that he and his wife actually bought a home here in the Grand Prairie region. They say in Grand Prairie, and of course I quibble and say, well, actually, technically that's in the county. But that was one of the first things that the company did, that Pat did personally. The company didn't pay for that house. He paid for it out of his salary because he wanted to ensure that there was a connection at the top to this community. And I think that that spirit has carried through the way that Seven Generations operates. We did have a kickoff meeting for the ICF, Intermunicipal Collaboration Framework Pre-Work Committee, where the City of Grand Prairie, the towns of Sexsmith and Wembley, and Horse Lake First Nation attended to meet and do the startup meeting with with our chosen consultants. And the last thing that I'll report on was that our Tri-Municipal Partnership Committee between the City of Grand Prairie, the County of Grand Prairie, and the MD of Greenview had a meeting on Thursday the 3rd where we reviewed proposals for essentially for staffing to resource the committee so that we can start to make some headway on the long list of complicated things that we need to do to get that development going out in the MD of Greenview. With the ultimate goal being that new development will happen and that the property tax revenue and benefits of that new development in the MD of Greenview will be shared with the City of Grand Prairie. And I think that that's all I have to report. Thanks very much and welcome back, Council.